Hi, my name is Allie. Welcome to the Black Spruce Knitting Podcast. I live in the Green Mountains of Vermont in the United States on Abenaki land with my partner Chris and our dog Darwin. Darwin's sitting next to me out of frame. Thank you so much for watching. Before I get started, I did want to say that I posted an episode last week on Wednesday, and the day after Russia invaded the Ukraine and started a war, and trans youth in the United States, especially in Texas, face more challenges to receiving gender affirming and life-saving care. It's been, I think, a hard week for a lot of people. I've also seen a lot of folks online writing about how there are also so many other wars and occupations that are happening, such as in Afghanistan and Syria and Palestine. And I don't really have anything to say except that probably like many of you, I'm dreaming of a world to come where everyone has access to safety. So a thing that's on my mind. I am going to talk about some knitting today. I have received a package in the mail also from Liza of the Volbloom podcast in South Africa, but I think I might save talking about that package until I've sent my half of the yarn trade so that we can kind of coordinate and post at the same time. But I have a wonderful, wonderful package to show you hopefully soon. I have all of my items for the trade. I just need to go send them internationally, which I'm hoping to do this weekend. So I think today I will talk about this finished object that I'm wearing. And I will show a couple new cast-ons, talk about some of my plans for what's coming next, and then give a small knitting related life update. So I am wearing my finished Wise Weed sweater, which is a pattern by Catherine Clark. Love is in the making on Instagram, and this pattern released on Tuesday, which is Catherine's birthday. So I can talk about it now. I was a test knitter. I made the size 9 because I didn't meet gauge. So it's not actually the size 9 in measurements, but I made the size 9 and I used Knit Picks palette yarn, and I love this sweater. I'm so happy with the finished result and I loved making it. I want to tell you a lot about it. I'm actually going to try focusing the camera downwards so that you can see more of it while I'm sitting and while I'm talking about it. I also did take some footage of it up close, so I will have at some points in time some close-ups to add. So I've changed the camera a bit so that hopefully you can see more of this sweater. But I want to talk about the pattern a little bit, and then I want to talk about the yarn, and then I want to talk about the experience of testing a little since I was a test knitter for this gorgeous pattern. So the Wise Weed sweater is based on herbs traditionally used for midwifery, such as raspberry and calendula and nettles and clover and some other, and I think chasteberry, fenugreek. I can't remember all of them, but I've mentioned before, my partner Chris is an herbalist, and I have an interest in herbalism, so I thought it was a meaningful pattern. I also love that it's very customizable. You can switch which herbs you put in, you can switch the order, so especially because this is a great stash buster and it's great for scraps, you could think about which flowers you want to do in which order. There also are options for pockets that have a secret message that say bend and bloom, and an inner hem that has a secret message that says still growing. I did not knit those, I think because I was sort of in a time crunch, and especially because I was knitting at such a small gauge. I knit this on size US 3 needles, but because of my gauge, at the widest part I had more than 500 stitches, and then even here it was like I think around 300, and I needed to finish it in time for the test knitting call. So I didn't do the pockets or the hem, although I kind of wish that I had. Someday I might knit another one of these, and I definitely would love to do the hem. Catherine gives you templates so that you can also make your own message. I had an idea that I wanted to do Yiddish in mine, which is, you know, I'm like, my family is Yiddish speaking Jews, so it felt cool and exciting, but I had to finish it for the test knit, so I didn't get to do that. But there's the option to make it cropped. There's so many options. It's a really customizable pattern, and I feel like when you are reading the pattern, it's so clearly tech edited, it's written clearly, and I feel like you can see the love that Catherine puts into her patterns when you knit this. There's just, I mean, like, it's full of special touches. There's dandelions, there's like a dandelion pattern in the short rows. It feels so special. I just loved knitting it. I would say that this is complicated color work. Other than the short rows, you're never purling in color work, but sometimes you're holding 3 colors at a time, and sometimes the floats are quite long. And I had never knit 3 colors at a time, and I loved it. It was so engaging, and it wasn't like, I don't know, it felt great to knit. I don't know, I like, there's so many like little, it feels like a special knit. It's so process oriented, and I can't recommend it enough for that reason. Like, the process felt connecting to me. I think you could be like knitting this and feeling connected to these herbs too. So it's really cool. I didn't really modify too much, except that I did modify the length because my gauge was off and my row gauge was off, and I needed it to sort of, I didn't want it to be cropped, but I didn't want it to be too long. And I did modify the sleeve length as well, although I kind of wish I have not woven in my ends yet. That is a to-do for soon, but I wish I had maybe knit the sleeves longer. They're kind of like a 3/4 length, but this is where I ended them, and you know, I think I'm still very happy. I love this like detail of, even if you don't do kind of like the secret hem, you get these like beautiful purple borders, which is the same as this color. I will say the fit is very good. I am definitely having the issue of the yoke coming down too low, and that's my only complaint about the fit, and I actually feel like I should take responsibility for it because my gauge was off. When I was knitting this, I was like right here, and I was like, I should split for sleeves, or I was even here and I was like, I should split for sleeves, because I think my row gauge is off, but I didn't. I kept knitting. And so it definitely, the yoke is too deep for me, but I feel like I could have avoided that if I had been paying attention. And other than that, I just think it's like a gorgeous fit. I'm glad that my my gauge math worked out. There is waist shaping to do like an A-line, so like it kind of flares out a little bit, but because I wasn't doing the pockets and the secret hem, I did not do that waist shaping. But I'm really happy with the fit. I'm honestly like a little surprised because I was making it and it was such a process oriented piece, and I was thinking like, will this be wearable for me? But it feels so wearable, although it's really special, so I'm like, when am I gonna wear it? But I just think the knitting itself was so engaging. If you are feeling up to and interested in knitting a fingering colorwork sweater, I cannot recommend this enough. Catherine, who designed it, is also just like, I don't know, I just love her approach to pattern design. I think for styling, I think it looks better with, for me, I like it with jeans, although I do like that these pants kind of match this color. But I like it with jeans or maybe over like a long dress. But here, I'll put in the pictures that I took for my finished object pictures. But I didn't want to wear jeans today. So yeah, it's just like, I have to be real, I kind of never want to take it off because it's so comfortable. And I'm trying to look to see. I made notes that are over there, so I just wanted to see if there was anything that I left out. Yeah, it's a customizable pattern. I think it's gorgeous. The pattern itself is just beautifully written. I wanted to talk a little bit about the yarn that I used, which I've mentioned before is Knit Picks Palette, which is like a pretty budget-friendly yarn. Even though I bought all of the yarn for this, I didn't use any scraps. I think I probably spent about like $70 US on yarn, and I have a ton left over, so it feels like it was pretty reasonable. And the yarn really bloomed, and I find it to be quite soft and really woolly. I'm interested to see how it wears. I don't know if it will wear, I don't know how it's gonna wear, honestly. There should be 2 greens, and some of my rows only have 1 shade of green, and I kind of wish that I had used 2 shades of green for every row. The reason for that is that I didn't like the first dark green I got, but then I switched to this other dark green that I think works better. But I think it's a beautiful yarn. I definitely will put in some shots of the yarn close up. I only used, except for this pale pink, I only used heathered colors of Knit Picks. And I think that it kind of mimics like a Shetland yarn in look, but was less expensive. That said, I would love to knit like this sweater with Shetland yarn, just because I think it's a gorgeous pattern, and I thought this yarn was nice. It's very thin, which is why I think I had gauge issues, and I would love to knit like a thicker and hopefully like hard wearing version of this. I guess I feel sort of worried that it's not gonna wear well, but maybe it will be totally fine. I know that I think Pyramid Knits had left a comment and said that this yarn blooms beautifully, and I really feel like it does. Even the parts where I have not held it double or triple for color work actually turned into like a really, really nice fabric. But the fabric where there's color work is just like, oh my gosh, it feels perfect to me. I did magic loop for most of the sleeves, and I will say that my color work tightened up a little bit, but it blocked out, I think it blocked out pretty well. You can see maybe a little bit of like a bump, but I think that as I wear it, it will continue to block out. Something else about this pattern that I think is really smart that I forgot to say is that the parts that are solid color are a 3x1 rib. So you know how sometimes if you knit a sweater that has color work and then like stockinette, the stockinette kind of pops out a little bit because it's not being held in by the color work. Because this is ribbed, it doesn't do that at all, which I think is really, really clever. And I absolutely love that about this sweater. And oh my gosh, it just feels great to wear. And I have a lot of this yarn left over. I had been thinking about knitting a blanket with it or knitting a different colorwork project, but what I'm actually dreaming of doing, and this might be really silly, is I kind of want to use this motif with my leftover knit picks and make a sweater for Darwin. He doesn't mind wearing clothing. He doesn't enjoy wearing hats. I may have mentioned this before. I was like, should I do one for him? And then I was like, no, but I have the perfect amount of yarn to knit one for him, and I don't think it would take too long because he's like 23 inches around, I want to say, and it would only be like this big, and then maybe steek it. And I asked Catherine and she said it was fine. So there might be a dog wise weeds in the future and we can match. That feels sort of silly to talk about, but I think it would be very sweet. I'm trying to think about other things about the yarn. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I would definitely use Knit Picks palette again. I would be interested in trying Knit Picks palette held double. Having the gauge be very small was the biggest challenge for me, just because I would have probably knit like a size 6 or 7 instead of a size 9. And you know, it's something to think about when you knit bigger sizes. There are more stitches, but it just took longer. And so, you know, it's a pretty fine yarn. I don't have it with me. It's upstairs right now, all of the leftovers. For a lot of these colors, I had almost a full skein. Like I used like 40 grams. I will link Ravelry, where because this was a test knit, I weighed all of my yarn, so you know how much I used for each color, and I have all of the names of the yarn as well, so that if you're curious about a particular color, you can check it out on Ravelry. If Ravelry is inaccessible to you, please always feel free just to let me know, and I'm happy to answer any questions in the comments. Speaking of, this is an aside. I know that I'm really behind in comments right now. I'm working on catching up. I really apologize. I'm like a little bit behind all the time, but I always appreciate everyone's comments, and always happy to answer any questions. So yeah, that is the pattern and the yarn. I'm really happy with it. I'm going to zoom you back in and talk a little bit more about testing and sort of like, what do I do after this project? 1 second. Hello, we're back up close. So testing this, I wanted to talk a little bit about testing because this was my second experience, and I have to say it was lovely. The group was lovely. My first time I didn't realize that there was an Instagram group, and this time I knew. So I got to sort of participate in talking with folks, and especially because this pattern is so involved and special, and there's also a lot of decisions to make, it was really cool to have some community support around knitting it. And I loved seeing what everyone made, and it's so cool, and I love that I got to feel connected to other people through the experience of test knitting. I would love to test knit for Catherine again. I hope that maybe someday I have the opportunity to. That said, I do think I'm going to take a break from test knitting for a while. I said that last time, but now I really am going to, because I have so many projects that I want to work on. And while I was working on this, it was hard to spend really any time working on other things, because I wanted to make sure that I had this finished in time and that I had notes for Catherine. So I loved the experience of knitting this, and I definitely think that I am on a little test knitting hiatus. I think sometimes test knitting is so fun and exciting and can be really motivating. Like I finished this in about 2 months, which maybe even less, which feels like an accomplishment. But I also want to make sure that I am getting lots of different projects done. So I will probably not sign up for any test knits for a while. That said, now that I am done with this, I am finding that I am just craving a similar experience from knitting. I am just finding that I just want to be knitting like all over coloring work at like a small gauge. Maybe I just want to knit this again. I don't know. Maybe, you know, I wonder, my mom said she really liked this sweater. Maybe this will be the sweater that I knit for her, but I have to talk to her. I offered her this one and she was like, no, it's for you. You have to keep it. But I mean, I love it, but I also would be happy to give this to my mom. I am seeing my parents this weekend, so I'm going to be able to deliver some knits to them. So hopefully next episode I'll have some footage of my dad wearing the sweater that I made for him. But yeah, I just like, I felt so involved in this project, and now that it's done, I'm sort of like, whoa, what next? So we'll see. I have a lot of ideas at the end of, so after talking about finished object, this one, and some whips, I'm gonna share that I have an idea for some color work that is feeling very exciting. But yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything that I haven't said. I've said some things about this in previous podcasts, including that for part of the 3-color work, I did use a knitting thimble. I ended up actually not using it for the sleeves and just holding, like picking up and dropping the 3 colors, or holding, no, that's not true. I held 1 color in my right hand and 2 colors in my left hand and just tensioned it. I like the knitting thimble a lot, but it ended up kind of slowing me down a little bit. I'm trying to think. Catching floats is definitely different when you've got 3 colors to balance. You just have to sort of be thoughtful about it, and make sure that you're catching, I would end up catching like the two colors at once oftentimes, because you can have a color that's going a lot longer and you're not like paying attention. Does that make sense? I don't know. Like it just, I feel like every single row you do like a little like calculation in your head of like, okay, what do I have to sort of keep an eye on this row? What's my rhythm gonna be like? So like every row your rhythm is kind of changing, which is sort of cool and sort of fun. So yeah, I think it felt like a really successful knit to me. I would say other than this one fit issue, it fits beautifully. This could have been remedied if you knit it. Just watch out for when you're splitting for your sleeves. It's really easy to split earlier. Yes, yay. Cool, so that's my one finished object this week. I did finish it the other week, but now that the pattern is out, I will link it and I can talk about it. I have a few new cast-ons to show you. In the words of Rachel from Night Sky Knitting Podcast, I have been casting on with wild abandon, which feels really good. I ordered some more yarn. I had kind of been not ordering yarn, especially when I was working on this, but I have lots of projects that I want to knit, and so I have 2 to show you. The first one, I got up to grab part of this project and I realized that this white chair is covered in dog hair. This is where Darwin always sits. So you'll have to excuse how much dog hair is on it. We clearly need to clean it. But this project is made with this yarn, which is called Nash Island Tide. And this yarn I spoke about in my second ever podcast, I think. It's because I bought it when I was in Maine last summer, and it's really special yarn that is made from wool from wild sheep that live on an island. And I've had it, and I had my project in mind, which is the Fumber sweater. I'll put in a picture, by Marie Wallen, which, oh, that reminds me, this sweater, very, very size inclusive. Marie Wallen's projects are not as size inclusive. I think it might go up to like 50 something inches, but something that I'm trying to be a little more thoughtful of. But the Wise Weed sweater definitely goes up, I think, past 62. But I'm knitting the Fumber sweater by Marie Wallen. It's my first Marie Wallen pattern, and I'm finally getting to use this yarn that I bought in August last year. And I believe the colors I have are Seal, Driftwood, and Barnacle. This one might be, I'm not sure which one's Barnacle and which one is Driftwood, but they've all got sort of oceany names. It's a non-superwash sport weight yarn made from the wool of these wild sheep, and they get sheared once a year. And it is such a nice, cool yarn. Let me show you how far I am. This project is knit bottom up, and so I have knit pretty much all of the, I keep slipping off the stitches, but this yarn is so sticky that they never like really run. I've knit pretty much all of the part of the sweater up until you join for the sleeves. So I've done like most of the body, and I'm about to start the sleeves. I did a tubular cast on 1x1 rib, and now it's just been stockinette. So I've been knitting on this a lot this week. I have a little stitch marker from Katie of the Green Bean podcast, which Chris got me for my birthday. I put it here because I haven't knit yet today. So you knit bottom up, which I think I've mentioned a couple times recently. I'm like loving bottom up construction these days. So bottom up body, and then I'm gonna do the sleeves, and then I will join them to do a color work yoke. And I am just loving knitting with this yarn. It is not soft, it's pretty rough. It does soften up with blocking, which I know because I made a swatch that I'll show you in a second. It's not like scratchy, but it is rough. And I feel like you can feel that these are sheep that live on an island in the ocean. It feels like knitting with the ocean. There's something about it that feels like a little salt sprayed, and I'm just loving that. I feel so excited. It's making this like light fabric. I'm knitting on size US 2 for this part, and then it will be US 3 for the color work. And I just love the fabric. It's super sticky. If you're looking for an interesting non-superwash yarn, I'm pretty sure, I know that some of the Nash Island yarns are milled in Vermont at Green Mountain Spinnery. I'm not sure about this one. It's a little thick and thin, but it definitely feels like a consistent sport weight. It feels warm and light. I feel like this is fabric that you could wear at the beach. I don't know why, but it's making me think of like being at the beach in November. And it's pretty well priced. I think it was $12 US per skein, and I think I bought 10 skeins, so that's, you know, $120 US for a sweater. That's not inexpensive, but I think for what it is, which is like hand dyed, very small, I feel like the price is I think it's decent. And it's a really, really cool yarn. So if you enjoy like a rustic, rough, but not terribly scratchy, like it doesn't feel like there are those guard hairs sticking up, but it's not, yeah, definitely not like soft, but I think it's gonna be warm. If you want to knit with the ocean, this might be a yarn that you're interested in. And I wanted to show you, where did I put it? Here we go. I have a swatch for how the color work will look. And I think it's sort of interesting, which is how I know it's gonna get a little softer, but it's still pretty rough. I think it's interesting how much this gray is reading as blue up against this kind of like mushroomy, this base color, the seal. To me, it looks, maybe because this is so warm and this is so cool, I don't know if you can tell, but these yarns are like very subtly tonal. But I'm pretty excited to do the yoke with these colors. It's gonna be for me. And there aren't long floats in this yoke. It's a pretty straightforward pattern, and I'm excited. I've kind of just been like going with this one. If I hold this up, maybe you can see. Can you tell that there's like a very subtle tonality to it? I don't know. One other thing about this sweater is that I'm knitting the second largest size, and I may have sized up. I'm about a 41-inch bust, and they had recommended the size 43, but I'm knitting the one that's 46 inches, and I've been a little worried that it's going to be too big. But Chris pointed out that if it's a little oversized, if there's like a little positive ease, it will be cozy. So I'm hoping I don't regret sizing up, especially because I don't feel like reknitting this. This is like all week what I've been working on. But I'm pretty excited. I think I might finish this quite quickly, which is great because I have a lot of other projects in mind. So this is kind of like my big sweater project that I cast on now that I have finished the Wise Weeds and the Gaston for my dad that I spoke about in last episode. And I have one other work in progress that I cast on. I'm so sorry if I am speaking really quickly today. I don't know why. I feel like I'm faster. Anyways, so the Fumber, and then I have one other new cast on, which is this, which is the Lear. It's on very small needles, or a small cord. This is the Lear Baby Blanket by Nat Red Wolf, who wrote that pattern, the henwife, for the shawl that I'm very interested in knitting. And I am knitting this in Knit Picks Comfy, which is worsted weight, and it's a, is it worsted weight? Yes. It is 75% Pima cotton and 25% acrylic. And this is going to be a gift for my friend who is pregnant with her first child. She's a midwife. She's really cool. And I'm really excited. This pattern is pretty simple. It's like seed stitch and this stitch pattern that I realized is the same stitch pattern that I've knit before for the Jujise cardigan by Yamagara Knits. And here's a question for all of you. When I was looking at this pattern, I was like, oh, I think I could probably do that without paying for the pattern. But because I got inspired by it, I did end up buying the pattern. And I won't say too much about it just because I do think, you know, this is a beautiful pattern that is worth paying for by a designer. But I don't know if anyone has ethics. Like, if you get inspired by a pattern, do you feel like you should buy it, or do you usually try to figure it out on your own? I don't know. I don't know what the right thing to do is. I did buy it because I felt like that was respectful to the designer. But yeah, it's a nice seed stitch border, a nice stitch pattern. It's pretty simple, but it is a good kind of more mindless knit for when in the Fumber I have things that I need to pay attention to and I need something to just grab. When I had started this, there was a moment when my friend thought that she was gonna have twins. I was like, I need to knit another baby blanket, but she's not having twins. She's just having one baby, which will be nice because I can make that one baby lots and lots of things. And my friends have seen this. They were over last night, so it won't be a surprise. It's definitely a different yarn than I normally would use. I wanted something that would be very, very washable and easy for them to deal with since they will be new parents. And I actually it's very soft. I read a lot about baby blankets and yarn for babies. You know, some people will say you shouldn't have anything with acrylic in it because of fire hazards. Some people say it's fine. Some people say wool. The baby is due in May, so I wanted something a little bit lighter than wool. And hopefully the baby there won't be any fire. And I'm just hoping that this is really, really machine washable so that it's easy for them to care for. I also was like, I don't want to do lace because the baby's finger could get caught. I don't know if this is actually important when you're knitting a baby blanket. I've knit baby clothing for a cousin before who had a baby. I don't know. I might have overthought it, but I think this is a really, really cute baby blanket pattern. It's very easy. It's quite easy to memorize. I would definitely recommend it. I think it's gonna be so sweet. Yeah, it's a really soft and lovely yarn. It doesn't hurt my fingers to work with at all. So that's it for my works in progress. As I had previously mentioned, I have a wonderful package from Liza of the Volbloom, I hope I'm saying that correctly, podcast, which I'll link below, but I might just wait to share it until I've sent my package back to her for our yarn trade. So I don't have any new acquisitions. I did order some yarn to pair with some of my Junction Fiber Mill yarn for a sweater for Chris. That's a cast on. I ordered some black mochi by Baracco for like a quick sweater for myself. I have so many plans. I am still interested in knitting a lace shawl for myself. For hopefully if I get married in the next year, I'd like to, or two, I would like to wear a shawl that I've knit. So I'm starting to think about that. I have not done that much lace knitting. So if you have a favorite lace knitting yarn, please let me know. I'm really interested in what people enjoy knitting with. I think I'm going to try making the Even Star shawl, which I'll link below. I also have come across this wonderful, wonderful vest pattern for the Trout Vest by 10 Old, who is a Japanese designer. And I'll put a picture in, but this pattern is not available. It just is not available anywhere. And I was sort of reading this person's website and reading about how they went to Bunka Fashion College, but they're like really excited about Shetland yarn and design, and I think that they sell some kits, but I don't know how to get it from Japan, and I don't think they even sell a kit for the sweater. I'm obsessed with all of 10 Old's work because it's like Japanese Shetland Fair Isle. I think it's so cool. But I love this vest and I really want to make it for my friend. So I think I'm going to try reverse engineering it. And again, I'm interested in your opinions. I would not sell the pattern. I'm not going to publish the pattern. But do you think it is ethical to reverse engineer something if there's no pattern available and if there's no way to financially support a creator? I'm very, very interested to hear your opinions because I think that this might be one of my big projects for this year, in addition to lace and some other things. I had a lot of comments on my last video that hand spun that I should use it for myself, and I might actually use it for a twig sweater for myself, partially inspired by Tiny Human Knits, who has spoken about how much she loves the twig sweater. So I don't know, I have like 10 different ideas right now, and I'm excited about my garden. My little leeks are up, my little onions are up. I'm gonna start some more seeds in the next week or two, even though there's a ton of snow outside. So many exciting things happening. Yeah. Yeah, so feeling excited about knitting, feeling excited about garden, excited about my friends having a baby. And, you know, I just wanted to mention one more life thing because it's sort of related to this channel, which is that I had emailed someone else to ask about doing an interview, another really amazing person in Vermont doing really cool work in the fiber community, and that person said yes. And so I'm starting to kind of dream big about what I want to do. I think instead of making episodes, I might try to shoot something a little bit longer and more cohesive about the Vermont fiber community. There are so many cool people doing things here, from, you know, Green Mountain Spinnery, which is a worker-owned cooperative, to the Junction Fiber Mill and what Amanda and Peggy are doing, to the Mountain Heart School, to all of these farmers. And I think that there's a story, and I think it's something that feels special and spiritual and just like important to me as someone who enjoys yarn and knitting and enjoys feeling close to the place that I live. So I am tentatively trying to see if I can make this actually a bigger project, which feels like a really kind of exciting thing to do in addition to my regular job. I will definitely keep you updated. Again, I don't want to say too much yet because I want to make sure that like certain things are going to line up before I talk about it. I yeah, I am just feeling really excited and really grateful to all of you for giving me this opportunity to realize that like I love making videos about this community and the people who are doing what I see as being very, very important things to so that we can be making clothing and art for ourselves. So craft is really important. A lot of people say it more eloquently than I do, but craft is really important. So that is all I have to talk about. I am going to hopefully have another episode at some point in time. I really hope that you're all taking care of yourselves and being super gentle with yourselves. I know that I will try to do the same. And take care. I always have so much difficulty figuring out what to say goodbye. Take care. Thank you for being here. And I'll talk to you soon.